All right, so this panel session, we want to shift the focus a little bit. So we want to focus on the education. Okay, I will start my complaint. So, yeah, let's go to the first question. So the question is about fundamental versus deep learning. So over time, we have seen, I think most of you guys see the student knock at the door, say, hey, professor, I want to do a machine learning project. I want to learn deep learning, okay? And, okay, I say, oh, fine, just do deep learning. I understand, most of the students working with us, they have long-term plan to work in the industry. They are hoping to get the skill set on machine learning. But my concern is the fundamental is also important. So when I teach computer vision or when I teach image processing, I still keep active shape analysis, your geometry remaining manifold. So, and of course I will have a deep learning point in my lecture. So my first question is I want to just start from Didong. So what's your opinion when you do teaching, like fundamental or deep learning? You want to do like a hybrid or just completely go to deep learning?
Well, thanks. I want to complain first. I know I'm the panelist just 1 minute ago. No one really told me there's a panel discussion, I'm supposed to be here. So I'm not really well prepared. That's an easy question for me because we have, so in our department we have 2 machine learning courses. I'm teaching both of them. And I think Hong is teaching a new one, but for now I'm really the only faculty teaching machine learning. And so we do have a intro level machine learning for really master students. Say for biostat masters and some master in public health, say from EPIC, from nutrition. And so that machine course, probably 90% are called fundamental here. They only have like 2 lectures of deep learning without any technical details. And for the PhD level elective, it's a new course. I'm still working on the syllabus. That's about half-half. So I think both are important, especially from a biostat department. We are not computer science. Deep learning is just part of machine learning. And some students work on really small data sets. Some of those sets are like 20, 30, maybe like less than 100. So the fundamental models are still valuable in my point of view. Thanks.
Yeah, I very agree with Dino's point. So myself, I would like to share a little bit about my personal experience rather than discuss the things I didn't familiar with. So for myself, I take on applied math training in my undergraduate. I found it very useful, especially for the optimization part when I come to my PhD study, working on the computer vision, machine learning, etc. So it's a course I just designed for the new semester. Basically, it's 30% about the optimization foundation, like convex optimization, non-convex optimization, and projective gradient descent, etc. And the rest, 60%, will be deep learning kind of things. I think if we only emphasize like how to do the SGD, how to design the neural network, it seems that we're producing like a machine learning engineer. And if we want to do more fundamental research, I think the basic mathematics and statistics are very helpful, especially like whenever we try to optimize advanced AIs, being principle well, prior well, physical rule well, it will come up a lot of like mathematics, statistics problems, like some like assignment mapping problems. Max cost, minimum cost, max floor kind of things can be very helpful in the designs. I think this is my brief answer. Thank you.
So this question maybe it's difficult, but I think
I was just going to briefly say from my point of view, as someone is kind of an end user and trying to understand how to apply it correctly, and I think it has been somewhat difficult for me to get that basic understanding. I did get a couple of books and tried to read through them without looking at the equations and things, just to get the big picture of it. But I think having some sort of a opportunity for non-experts to, it kind of like the discussion yesterday, you need to know a little bit about everything you're going to be doing to learn those things.
Yeah, this is a great question. I think that I've thought a lot about, because I'm, coming from like the fundamentals in my career, and then when deep learning came along, it made it harder to get students, if I can complain, to learn the fundamentals because they don't think they need to. And so recently I've been pointing out that if you look at all of the really, I would say really fundamental advances in machine learning, like even recently like diffusion models, they always come out of some fundamental principles, like the really good work. And so if you look at the diffusion models, for instance, just as the example I like currently, and all my students want to work with diffusion models, so it's easy for me to motivate this. It has a very nice derivation. Look at the Ho et al. Paper, the DDPM paper, very nice derivation, variational Bayes, and derived, I think they even call it a proof maybe even. So that like these kinds of fundamental like probabilistic modeling and Bayes, and variational methods, it all is still very relevant. And then getting down the road where they did stochastic differential equations, and the connection to that is like very nice mathematics behind all of it. So I think yes, there is a place for if you want to engineer deep learning models and make nice advances. But if you want to make really the kind of some really new fundamental advances, you still need to know a lot of these fundamental principles. And so I try to get all my students to learn these things with varying success. And the classes I teach, I always try to mix the fundamentals with kind of the latest machine learning. So I teach my graduate course currently, I call Geometry of Data, and so I mix in all of my geometry that I like to teach, but then I show how it's applicable to machine learning, like manifolds, and manifold learning, especially generative models. There's a lot of geometry there. And then in my undergrad class, I teach very traditional topic, digital signal processing, to like electrical engineers, across the computer scientists. But then at the end, we're doing filters and Fourier and all this kind of like very traditional stuff. But then at the end, the last month of class, I do deep learning. So if you look at recursive neural networks and LSTMs, and then even transformers, they're all sequence models. You can process signals with machine learning, and so I try to bring that back into like how linear time invariant systems. These are now nonlinear and not time invariant systems when you do deep learning. And so I think trying to make sure we keep the two mixed as much as possible is my strategy.
Okay, I actually had a lot to complain because I got my PhD in BME, and my boss is in Department of Neuroscience, and also got post training in neuroscience. But right now I'm the ECE faculty, so all my students right now is CS or EE background. So that's the lesson I learned. So all the students comes to me and said, I want to do the deep learning. I don't want to touch any like the green diffusion MI, whatever. I want to do the deep learning AI. So I give the data to them, but they do not understand what the data means. They do not understand the dominant direction means what. They just said, tell me what do you want to expect? What do you want to predict? It turns out sometimes you can get good results. The most of the time, they don't understand the result, and the most of the time, they'll get the wrong result. Because the deep learning, if you do not have a right regulation, the result, the outcome will become very strange. So right now, I told all the students, if you want to work on the brain MI data, you need to first understand what the data mean. You need to understand all the principle, the fundamental stuff. And also, you need to try all the standard clinical method, like the linear regression model, before you try deep learning model. Because right now, I mean, 20 years ago, 10 years ago, if you write a paper, you can just do the works-wise or ROI-wise group comparison, you can get the paper out. But right now, if you use the ROI value to get some paper, I don't think any journal will accept it.
So right now, every paper talk about the deep learning, you need to have like a very fancy method. Even the baseline method is kind of very basic deep CNN model, something like that. No one tried compare with like the linear regression model. But I found out, because that's the lesson I learned, I told my student to do some regression task. He tried a lot of different deep learning and give me a table that compared the results, that this method is best. Then we talked with my UPMC, my clinical collaborator. He just asked me, deep learning has so many parameters to train, why not try the simple linear regression to see the regression error? We test the linear regression is the best one in terms of the error. So I told students, you need to start from the very beginning, understand the data, then understand what the typical method, standard method you need to know, then jump to the deep learning. Of course, when you run the deep learning, the standard machine learning, like the SVM, those standard one, you still need to try. But right now, every people talk about deep learning, but the deep learning have so many parameters you need to train. It's very easy to get overtrain or overfit, right? So that's why during the research, during the teaching, I encourage them, I require them to fundamental part and deep learning part, you need to understand both.
Well, those are great comments. So just to provide a perspective from industry, for example, I'm sure you have students where they're like, yeah, I'm not doing PhD, but I don't want to become a research scientist. So why do I need to understand the fundamentals? I can just download Monai, run some models, get you the best result, right? So interestingly, we get a lot of calls from commercial companies where they will hire these PhDs with deep learning, and then they will hire them and say, all right, let's work on this product. Then what you will see is a lot of them struggle if out-of-the-box model doesn't do the job because they're not understanding the fundamentals. So they'll come to us and say, hey, this out-of-the-box model is not getting us accuracy. Can you help us optimize it, right? Well, to do those optimization, those fundamentals will be important. So that's maybe another way, even for the students who are not interested in research or pursuing, advanced degree. If one motivation could be, hey, even if you end up in whatever corporate world, the state-of-the-art performance might not work on all the data, on all the problems. You still gotta get your hands dirty, optimize things, and to be able to do that, you gotta understand the fundamentals.
Great. So I just want to add a little bit on top of this great comments. So I would like to encourage students to focus on fundamentals because it's kind of part of training. Okay, we teach you how to look at the data, how to formulate the problem, and then the solution. Okay, like we computer scientists, we look at data, it's the matrix, what's the data structure? Biostatistician, look at what's the distribution, right? So I've been in a lot of thesis defense. We ask a student why you use deep learning. Answer is because professor asked me to do that. So if you understand the fundamental, you can justify yourself. So I would focus on fundamentals, but meanwhile we'll keep up the new technology. Right, thanks everyone. So we're going to shift on to the second topic. So it's a very general. So it's like how to promote brain network analysis, to the neuroimaging field and the machine learning field. So it's very general, but I would like to ask a specific question for each of you. So I would like to start from John, because John, you are the leader of the whole neuroimaging field. You collect the data and we analyze data for you. So I noticed in your presentation, your first part is you study cortical signals, right? And then you study brain network. So what brings you to study, brain network, and what's your comment, what's the power of, brain network in your study?
Yes, I mean, I think for what I'm interested in is trying to predict from early images what's going to happen to a child. I think understanding the fundamental building blocks is important, and then obviously, and everybody has said this, the brain is, everything is connected to everything in the brain, and you've got it, and it's incredibly complicated, so you have to end up applying these large data set, or just these models that can take into account as much as you can take into account in a reasonable way. Because I think that's the only way we're going to answer the questions that we want to answer. And and I know that there's been some criticism of machine learning is you don't get a biological signal out of it, and I know that people are trying to work on that. And so I think that to understand how diseases occur and what contributes to them, we need to be able to go backwards from that eventually.
Great. So I started to work on brain network is because Paul showed me that bird video. All right. So second question is for Leon. So I noticed you have a lot of work on brain network, structural network, and functional network. So in your opinion, what makes brain network special, to the machine learning field? So what's the challenge, or so what's your opinion?
In the beginning, my students don't want to work on the brain network, but when I told them, I call it brain network, you can call it brain graph, related to the graph learning. I told my students all EE background, CS background, so they don't want to do any biomedical stuff, but I said, if you rephrase it, it's called brain graph. There is one type of graph data. You can do the graph learning, then it will benefit for you if you want to look for some industry job. And in terms of, come back to your question, because the brain graph is the one type of graph I'm familiar. Because graph learning is very hot, like several years ago. That's why we know the brain activity is kind of the graph response, the graph response, right? We try to understand whether how normal people looks like and how disorder looks like. So we'll try to, from different angle. I'm not saying graph analysis is better than ROI or VxWise. The network analysis is kind of a different way to understand the brain, because right now we are still not sure how to treat Alzheimer's disease. So we just want to find a different way. So graph learning is provide a new way to understand the brain network. Yeah, that's my thank you.
Great. So our group, we listen to submit paper to NeurIPS and ICML. Okay, oftentimes we get 5 reviews, and some of them, half of them, they don't understand brain network. The common question is, why would you do this? Okay, so I know Tianlong, you're from machine learning field. Okay, so can you tell us how machine learning field people, how do they look at the brain network? And how can we, what can we do to intrigue machine learning field to work on our brain connecting data?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Yeah, I think it's a $1 million question. Yeah, because answer to the question can dominate the machine learning conference, publish a lot of papers. So from my perspective, in the first 4 years of my PhD study, I only published machine learning and computer vision and NLP papers. And so stuff from last year, I tried to do some AI for healthcare, AI for computational biology papers. I also received a lot of negative feedback from machine learning conference. Why is this problem is important? It seems like you directly apply machine learning method on one data set. Why you evaluate this data set? Why you didn't consider more data set, like some social graph, etc. So from my understanding that if one work is more like directly apply existing machine learning method on the brain network data set. So from the machine learning researcher perspective, they will see you only did one benchmark analysis, and usually there is 7, 10 benchmark analysis required in the machine learning community, because machine learning people care about the generalization ability of your proposed method. So my suggestion will be I would like emphasize first of all, we should emphasize problem is important. Try to persuade, educate the machine learning people like me to understand the key contributions for the background, and then I would like to propose some key challenges naive machine learning method will fail. So basically, I will show a bunch of observations, direct apply transformer, diffusion model, nerve, kind of things will lead to very poor results, or will lead to no explanations for the brain network problem. Then how can we customize the machine learning techniques to answer the unique challenges in brain network for either provide better prediction performance or provide better explanation, etc. And in the end, I will always mention this method can be general applied to other field, and I probably will did a little bit of experiment on other field in the appendix, because this is top one lazy question will be asked by the review. What is other analysis on the data set benchmark? Thank you.
Can I make that comment?
Sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the question you prepared for me, but I would like to agree with this statement. So I also submit to some machine learning conference almost every couple of months. So my experience is there are some workshops right after each conference, and I feel like the topics are more diverse than the paper submission. For example, usually there are 2 days workshops. You can see computational biology workshop, AI for health, AI for science, precision medicine workshop. Maybe it's a good idea to organize it like a brain network analysis in machine learning workshop. It might be something novel to the conference. And another possible approach is to consider a data set and benchmark track and new RIPs. It's less well known than the main track, but I've seen some papers who propose some data sets in, say, neuroscience, like climate science, geography, genetic data set accepted by new RIPs, at least last year. For example, there was a very impressive work. I think it won the Best Paper Award in that track last year, where they collected 1 million pathology images. It's mainly computer vision, but the images are from the pathology end, and the data are all public. And they download the data from YouTube. They screenshot the YouTube videos and tutorial. Very creative, like Twitter, LinkedIn posts. They just collect those type of data, clean it a little bit, and they won the best paper. So actually, we have recent work motivated by this best paper, where we collected a spatial transcriptomic data, these both pathology images and genomic components. We also submitted to this track. I feel like my students are pretty excited. So maybe we can consider some a data set track for this brain connectivity data, for example.
Great. Just keep the mic. I have a big question for you.
Oh.
So we have a computer scientist here. We have the statistician here. So my question is, these 2 techniques, they both are very powerful. We use statistics because they give us the p-value. We use machine learning because they have the power to do prediction. So my question is, in your opinion, is that possible to combine statistics and deep learning? And what's the advantage, by doing this?
Well, it's a tough question. So my training was not in stats or computer science, so I won't defend for either of this. I identify myself as an applied mathematician. So I appreciate both type of approaches. Each of it has certain advantages. Maybe stat model, maybe has more theoretical support. It's sometimes more interpretable. But deep learning machine learning method sometimes has better practical performance. They are more well documented. If you look at the package quality, machine learning packages have better quality than stat packages. I think there are some papers studying this. If you look at R packages, certain percentage packages are not really reproducible. You can't really run it even. And there's no clear instruction. But recently, I know that there are some stat journals. They evaluate the reproducibility because they realize this problem in stats method. And sometimes the deep learning method are more efficient. They can scale up to like large data set, but there are some stats methods that are super slow. So I think it's definitely possible to combine these two type of methods. Actually, that's what I'm working on. I probably have half students working on stats method, half on machine learning method. I think they are all pretty happy, and sometimes they collaborate with each other.
Good. So next question is about explainable AI. So I noticed for in your slides you show attention. Give us like we can understand what's the pattern that the machine is learning. So my question is, Tom, do you think attention is good enough for neuroimaging study, or is it possible to find the answer from mathematics or physics?
Okay, yeah, so let me plug another paper of mine then. If you bring up explainable AI, I presented one ISB paper, another ISB paper we had. And I'll plug the paper, but also kind of give the philosophy behind it when it comes to explainable AI, which I think is the broader issue that you're getting at here, is that the philosophy behind the paper is that a lot of explainable AI, the way it works, or interpretability, is that you have a machine learning model and you want to then figure out some way of extracting the features that it used and present it to the human user of the model in a way that they can understand, possibly. We sort of flipped the question on its head, just from a philosophical standpoint, and said, well, the human users, typically in our field, like medical doctors, clinical researchers, know what they know is interpretable. So ask the machine learning model if the things they know are at all useful to ask the machine learning model, are these features useful in your decision? So the very obvious example that we used was in Alzheimer's disease. Every neurologist and even dumb computer scientists like myself know that the hippocampus is atrophied, right? So is hippocampus volume a feature that you, the convolutional neural network, are using to make the decisions you're making? And so that was kind of the way we decided to frame the interpretability or explainability question. And in a nutshell, basically this gets to, and I think Paul had some things on counterfactual explanations and so it's a very similar ideas. Basically, what we wanted to do is say, I want to take away hippocampal volume as a feature from the model. So all of the data, we used a generative model to then push all of the data on the manifold of valid data to the direction of all having the same hippocampal volume. Keep everything as the same as possible in the image, except the hippocampal volume as best as possible. And then when all of the images have the same hippocampal volume, you then ask the classifier, can you tell the difference between AD and non-AD? And it was a coin flip, 50-50. Like once you made the hippocampal volume the same, it couldn't tell. Now to be clear, we were only looking at a ROI or a box, a cropped part of just the hippocampus. So it wasn't looking at the ventricles and everything else. But if you look at just the hippocampus, the only thing about the hippocampus it cared about was the volume. If we moved that away, it was stuck. And other features like making it longer and thinner but same volume didn't change it. It was really literally just the volume was the only thing that it could really hang its hat on. So that answers hopefully the kind of like how I see interpretability, explainability in AI, and I hope to kind of pitch that as a thing other people would think about is let the application area, the actual experts in the field that you're working in, drive hey, here's the features we understand and that are clinically relevant, and then sort of query the models in that direction. And I forgot what the rest of your question was. I think it was beyond. I can stop it.
So how to find the answer? Should we find the answer from mathematics, something fundamental, or just empirical by machine learning?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think, this kind of gets back to your first question about the fundamentals. And I think, to do this type of stuff, I think you do have to go back to fundamental mathematics. And we did in this work, to actually make the models look at only or remove these features, you have to be very careful about, you know, gradient flows and manifolds and things like this. And so there was some fundamental mathematics that, again, I like to force my students to do in that work. And then maybe another example where we're talking about kind of like fundamental mathematics and not just trusting deep learning. I think in the work I presented today, we're trying to get deep learning to generate images that are better quality than the actual acquired images. We haven't taken this step yet, I will admit, but you have to be very careful. I'm very skeptical with my own work and all the other people in the field that do the work like this, super resolution, just to make sure that we're not hallucinating features or generating things that you know, aren't really that aren't really being inferred from the data, but maybe being taken from the training set and applied to the individual, and maybe it's not quite what explains that individual. So I think as a field we need to figure out how do we validate a lot of these machine learning methods that can do things that are just, they seem like magic sometimes, but yeah, we need you know, both data sets and also fundamental new techniques to validate some of these approaches.
Just to make a quick comment, I guess one other aspect is how that explainability is going to be used, right? Because there are systems out there where you do iterative refinement, active learning. So you want the subject matter expert to get that you know, explanation in a way they understand it. Because if it's fundamental maths, because they're the subject matter expert, they might not understand that formulation. So that's part of the reason why attention mechanism saliency measures are so popular, is you can present it to the subject matter expert.
Great. So I see the lunch is almost ready, but we do want to have one last important question for you.
Okay.
So I know most people know MONAI, so it's a very useful, it's kind of more than library. So basically you have, if you have your data, just plug into, you know, I'm sure you can find a solution in MONAI, okay? But for Tianlong and Leon, correct me if I'm wrong, but for the graph neural network, so far we see a lot of GitHubs, but we don't have this kind of like something like MONAI. I think the problem is probably, you know, challenge is from most of them, we don't know how to look at data, right? The user definition is not clear. Some people study brain function, like Paul studied brain functional dynamics. They use a sliding window. So my question for you is, if you want to develop something like MONAI with a focus on, you know, brain connecting, you know, machine learning for brain connecting, so how should we start it?
Yep, that's a good question. So when MONAI started by NVIDIA and Kitware is involved and others, the goal is medical imaging, right? And obviously, MONAI is nothing else but optimized PyTorch implementation. So it uses projects and libraries part of the PyTorch ecosystem, but it's optimized for medical imaging. So obviously, once that problem was solved, and, you know, everybody's like, all right, we got the whole medical imaging and that's done, people start asking about AHR data, right? How do we now bring in multimodality into MONAI? So as part of that effort, then there were some extensions within the MONAI ecosystem, how to deal with AHR data, like, you know, non-structured data. And you can easily add that to the ecosystem because it's still gonna use PyTorch under the hood, right? With the same token, for the graphical deep learning network, I know there are some PyTorch geometric models that are available out there. They can be included within the MONAI framework. So the advantage of that is, one, you have, you know, hundreds of NVIDIA engineers that can support that because they have a lot of resources. Obviously, NVIDIA has a lot of resources, so their engineers can support it. But also, it would be it would stimulate more collaboration among the neuroimaging community to work on. Say, all right, I've got my medical imaging already handled within MONAI, the pipeline. All right, I can bring in now some graphical data and can be included, and it makes it a lot easier. Because a lot of the time, you know, when you think about 3D slicer, ITK, ParaView, a lot of the hard work is nuts and bolts, infrastructure, right? It's like, hey, how do you do I/O, input output? How do you do the testing, everything? Once that's done, adding more extensions is a lot easier. So
Yeah.
that's what I would suggest.
Yeah. I think the most important thing is community. So that's why we have this workshop between people from clinic, industry, and we develop methods, and we just do a cycle. So, great, thanks everyone. So, do you want to come here? So we'll do a quick close remark and then to lunch. Okay. So, thanks for everyone, and now we are relaxed. We can have to. Before that, we are super nervous. Okay. So I think a special thanks for Hong Tu. He's behind the planning committee, bring everyone together.